The question is, did he really free all of the slaves?
Let's find out.
Let's go back to this a little more back work that we did the other day in class. The Union versus the Confederacy. Our Union states, the ones marked in blue, the ones marked in pink are our Confederate states. And the ones in the lighter blue are called border states. And you'll understand why they're called border states in a minute. I want to go over a few quick terms that we went over again. Abolitionist, person who advocated or supported abolishing slavery. Emancipation, to free from restraint, influence, or bondage. Union, term used to describe, refer to the United States of America during the Civil War. Now remember, the Union, the northern states, that was still the United States of America. Even though the Confederate States did leave, the Union was still considered the United States of America without those states. The Confederacy, the group of states that seceded from the Union. And colonization, very important word. When any species, and remember humans are species, that populates an area. Okay. We went over our Abraham Lincoln, and we got my student right there to say that he freed the slaves. So let's go over some important facts here. Did Abraham Lincoln actually free the slaves? The Emancipation Proclamation tells us that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves only in the Confederate States. Let's go back to our map. Union versus Confederacy. So when he said, I'm going to free the slaves, he was only freeing the slaves in the areas that were pink. Those border states, and those actually some parts of Virginia and Louisiana, because those areas became under control of the Union during the Civil War after 1861, those areas were still allowed to have slaves. So technically, Abraham Lincoln did not free all of the slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation. Abraham Lincoln actually, prior to the Civil War in 1852, his idea was, let's free all the slaves, and now we're going to send them to Liberia. So they came here from Africa, we're going to round them all up again, and we're going to send them to Liberia. That's our best bet. That's what Abraham Lincoln actually thought prior to the Emancipation Proclamation. After writing the Emancipation Proclamation and going over his first edit, he took a group of free blacks, got them together, and said, hey guys, how about this? Let's get everyone together, we'll free all the blacks, and we'll colonize Central America. There was an uproar. They did not want to hear it. And that was when Abraham Lincoln put forth, after the Battle of Antietam, the Emancipation Proclamation. Colonization was never heard from again from Abraham Lincoln's mouth after the Emancipation Proclamation. At this point, after the Emancipation Proclamation, there was nearly 200,000 slaves, free slaves, that were fighting for the Union against the Confederacy. We can go back to targeted states. Like I told you before, Abraham Lincoln, this will show you, the states that were omitted from having to free their slaves, Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, and Delaware, with portions of Virginia and Louisiana. And this is all mentioned in the first paragraph of the Emancipation Proclamation. And it clearly states that any group or any state that is going to be fighting against the Union will not be allowed to have slaves. Okay. All right, class. A little time to think. For years, you've all been taught that Abraham Lincoln freed all the slaves. Knowing what you now know, how do you feel about Abraham Lincoln? Should he be called, he has many nicknames, should he be called the Great Emancipator? Anybody?
I'd say
Please.
yes, because he freed a lot of them all at once. I mean, he's a politician, so he has to balance, whether or not he wants to upset the border states. So
what about the poor woman who was a slave in that border state,
Mhm.
and that state stayed loyal to the Union, and she's going to remain a slave?
That's not good. It needs to be changed, but it was a positive step in the right direction.
It definitely was a positive
big
step in the
positive.
right direction. Definitely
Wasn't
was.
perfect, but it was a positive step.
Anyone else have a different opinion? No? Bruce?
He started the whole chain of events. So
Yes, he
he
did.
did the first thing that was a tremendous step in the right direction, but it didn't stop there. It kept on going and going and going. So he's like started it, and maybe he didn't finish all of it, but he started it, and because of what he did, it was inevitable that everyone had to get freed eventually.
Excellent point, Bruce. Okay, class, one more thing. It is now, it's quiz time. We're gonna take a quick quiz. I'll hand them out right now, and we'll get going.